Hello to you all out there. It's me again. This is page 6 in part 4. Um, yeah. um, I guess it is. This is weird because it feels like it's from where I'm sitting, it's been a full week since part 3 was put up for you all to see. Who knows how long it's going to feel between the times that you end up watching this, but it's just been weird to get. For some reason, I gotten one of those moods where I can't sleep. Well, no, I can't say I can't sleep. I've only I've only been able to sleep for like 4 hours at a time. It's like I wake up after 4 hours and then can't get back to sleep. So you just like sit up for half a day and then go down for another 4 hour nap. Um, but those 4 hours, it's like the 4 hours sleep doesn't really help. So the time you're awake, you're kind of half dead. And it's just been horrible for working on this, and it's gotten better in the last couple of days. I don't know if it means that I'm through that or what, but I was like 4 hour shifts for a few days, and then I actually got 6 hours one night. Oops, I don't want to twist. But then last night I get 10 hours. Like in the feast or famine kind of thing. I either can't sleep or I'm just sleeping all the time. So I know the time frame is going to be different when this goes up, but it's as of the time I'm recording this. Like, I know I've been quiet on, I haven't been online, I haven't been on Twitter and that sort of thing. I haven't been spamming Twitter with those promo cards. Um, okay, that's good. Oops, and I don't have the aspect frame, so I know what this is going to look like. Let's see. And top of that, oh, come on. Today was a good day to get all the updates on Windows. So where normally this sits open for days and days and days. It's 15:20. I'd previously shut everything down, so all the favorites in render settings. I just sit and favorite these two so that I have them readily available instead of having to fish through the entire list. Okay, that's weird. let's see. Is that what I want? Okay. So we will render that. And two, let me do this first. Oops, keep forgetting to do that every time. And two, I took the opportunity to upgrade or to update. Okay, there we go. Took the opportunity to update the beta version of DAZ Studios that I've been using. Even though one of the biggest things you learn is never upgrade never update any of these programs when you're in the middle of a project, because there's always some change that will mess you up. I found that a few projects back. I'd been for a while I've been using a very old version of GIMP to work in, and edit, cut, and for some reason at some point last year I finally decided to, I guess, look in, maybe update to the latest version. Sometimes it's like not like Windows. It's not like with Windows where they harass you with the updates. With when you sort of work with these programs, when you work with like GIMP, for example, you kind of have to go looking for the update. So, in my defense, I have, you get comfortable with it, and you just never think that to go looking and see if there's an upgraded version. So for some reason, I decided to upgrade GIMP last year, and I did it in the middle of a project and quickly realized that for some reason the text doesn't look the same as it did in the older version I was using. So it becomes one of those uh-oh. It becomes one of those uh-oh things, because suddenly, oh, come on, you've got like half a project where the text looks different than the other half. And it's kind of what I found was that I could make the text look the same with this version of GIMP, by it's by making it bold, which is, every time you see me come in here and make the text bold, that kind of came out from the last update. The last time I updated it was the only way to match the text with the text from the pages created in the older version, and it's just something that stuck. But it sort of is the same thing with DAZ Studios, where every time you download the update, all of a sudden you realize like something's different or something's off, and it takes you time to um, kind of adapt to it, if you will, which is not something you want to do when you're in the middle of a project. And one thing, and here's where I go off on tangents as I need to. Um, sort of working at this portion of the story, I'm having great struggles to keep from showing the end of the street where there's nothing. So you might have noticed on the previous page, and I say that knowing that this is going to be posted after the finished product goes up. But if you notice on the previous pages, some of the shots look kind of weird because I've had to frame them. You know what? Let's just undo. Okay. Actually, let's put you here because I want to see the trailer. Oh, and I don't want to do that. Control Z. I want to be on this layer when I do it. But yeah, when Dad, but going back to updating, with Daz Studios, um, when they put out the 4.1, is it 4.1? No, what version are we looking at? Oh, about Daz Studios. This is 4.12. So when they upgraded the the official release to 4.12, they immediately put out an update to the beta version that um, was an absolute mess for me, to the point where it was unusable, and I was able to basically downgrade to the beta version that was put out just before the official the official release. So I've been a little gun shy about updating the beta version as they've been like putting out the incremental builds since then. So so while I updated Windows today, I decided to I decided to update the beta version of Daz Studios to the current build to see if the problem was fixed. The problem that I was having was fixed. And it's again in the same, like, you don't want to find out that the version is a mess for what I want to do. I'm already struggling to just get to work on this. But thankfully it seemed like the problem I was having with it, they worked it out, so keep my fingers crossed. Da, da, da. See, like here, I never really expected to get a shot like this, so there's nothing over here. So I've got to kind of frame this a little bit. See, I can do that, and then this end will get cut off, and this end will get cut off. But at the same time, let's see, we need Rusty somewhat useful. Let's see, is it the Z trans? Okay, so we got Z translate, and then X is this way, right? But if I put him into the shot, then I'm going to, there we go. Let's see. How do I want to have him look? That looks good. And on a side note, kind of also what's been going on in this week, I hope with all I hope with all the all the let me see, how do I word, however I'm going to word this is going to seem off, but so I guess I'll just go for it, and I guess I'll just say it and hope you understand I don't mean this in a disrespectful way or anything, but I guess with all the news on the coronavirus, I really do hope all of you out there are kind of like doing okay. We sort of had our first case in the state this week, and of course it happens to be right around here where I'm living. Like, oh boy. uh, uh, you said this was the same truck. It's oddly enough, like, I don't worry about getting it myself, but it's like the thing that sticks in your mind is that, like, you become hypersensitive when you're out in public, and like you've got anything resembling a cough, or you have to blow your nose because of like this time of year, your nose is running in the in the colder weather, that sort of thing. And you can probably hear me like frequently clearing my throat through a lot of these videos. um, but you kind of get hypersensitive about that, like, oh my god, are people gonna panic? Oh my god, he's coughing. Run. So it's like, oh boy. So it's like funny when I sit here and talk about it on this video, but it's not funny when I'm like out in public. It's not funny to think it's like this, especially with it being like this close. Yeah, like, God, I really hope none of you have gotten it. Like, I really do. And like, if you're watching from outside the country, outside the U.S., like, I know a lot of other countries have been hit harder than we have. And it's probably compounded by the fact that like most of the countries that are getting hit, save for maybe China, aren't as geographically big as the U.S. So we've when they like report the coronavirus here in the U.S., it's kind of like it's kind of spread out. Whereas like you talk about the infection in say Italy, and it's a smaller country, so so it's in the grand scope of things, it's even worse than just the raw numbers. Like from our point of view here in the U.S., that is. Uh, but on a different note, one of the things I haven't really been mindful of that I've really gotta rein myself in at this point. See, once we trim this, you won't see that there's missing street. Oh shoot, this can't come up. But one of the things that I gotta be really careful of at this point is, in the grand scheme of things, here I'm getting close to the end of the story, so I've got to kind of make sure I don't putting too much of this. Um, I don't know. Let's call them character moments, and kind of move this along to the action, because I haven't really been sort of worrying about that early on. Where it's like in this story, sort of the action sequence that we're sort of like the mystery action sequence, whatever that we're building up to here, is sort of more of the climax to the love and love lost story. Whereas in the other three stories, this plot of this plot about the crime and the neighborhood watch and the kidnappings and all that has been the main story. Okay, so this is going to be a little weird because if once I tilt it over here, I've only got one building on this side. So what I'm going to do is zoom in really close or something so that I cut. This is going to be a very small panel. Let's see. Da, 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 da. Let's see, squint. I don't usually use squint that much. And I'm not sold on it. Let's dial it back a little bit. You know what I want to do? Where is nostril wrinkle? And I think we twist the head a little bit. Okay. Render. See, here I am talking to you, and I've got no. They're not in here. I like no concept to what's actually on the page. Okay. And there you are. Uh, edit cut. Select none. Shoot. Okay, let's do this again. There we go. I gotta have you back in the clipboard in order to do this. But, it's like going back kind of with the sleep issue. If I'm just doing a text story, I can actually write pretty well when I'm half asleep. um, it's like none. Ugh. I think it's something like kind of being halfway in, halfway into a dream state. Your mind is kind of like sort of freed itself, and like the way maybe drugs and alcohol kind of loosen your mind to creative thoughts. But it's like working on this, working on stuff like this. Like my head has to be clear in order to really see what's going on, what's going on in the image. Because if it's not clear, sometimes if you've got a fault in the picture, it slips through. You don't even notice it. And we've got, okay, yeah, here we go. you sometimes come back later on a piece, and all of a sudden you're like, God, that picture doesn't work because you weren't exactly clear when you rendered it. Okay, edit, cut. Yeah, but so just being in kind of a mode not to work on this. I've sort of been kind of throwing in some more details into the apartment set for the teddy bear project. Let's see. Da, da, da. Oops. And I'll tell you, I put up the poll letting you guys decide on Patreon what exact direction to go with on the transformation. Oh, let's see. Because I know I've kind of mentioned it before. Can't quite, I don't know quite where, if it ends up like in the sort of profile description I put up on like the Amazon, the Patreon pages, little introductory blurb, or if I've said it somewhere in one of these earlier videos. But for me, it's not really any specific change that I like over the other. I think it's because I like sort of the fun aspect of these. I sort of like them in general. It's just the idea of change in general, I think, appeals to me to an extent. So, sometimes I like doing, sometimes it's sort of the stories like with Shrimp of the House are fun to do. Sometimes it's the growth, muscle growth stuff with like we do here is what I find fun. And let's see where this image is going to look weird, but I don't want to. What am I looking for? Side to side. And to an extent, I do like the gainer. Is like the gainer change as well, to an extent. Let's see what we're gonna do. That's weird. I had a weird feeling he had another. I don't know what you want to call it. Morph dialed in. I'm not even sure what expression I want on him. But going back, going back to that thought I kind of half completed there. It's kind of like that's kind of why in the a new sort of diet story, I sort of went with somebody a little heavier, and it's kind of why in Teddy Bear, sort of one of the options is that he gets fatter, and it's not, and that's sort of weird. So like, the thing is, like, I kind of do like the overall change, but at the same time, I don't with that particular character. I think I explained it in the. I think I kind of said this in the poll as well. Like, well, I like the change. There's something about it that just change that for me it changes the character. But on the other hand, it's a change that it's sort of like thematically it's a change that makes sense because the idea is if the whole theme is that she's going to make him into like a human teddy bear, so to speak, if that's kind of the joke, if you will, then it kind of makes sense that he sort of becomes a little rounder, like a stuffed animal. That's why I'm having it. That's why I let it. But I put it up there, and you guys aren't making it easy because the polling's really close on that one. I don't know if I'll tell you which one's if I'll ever tell you which one's ahead or which one. Well, or which one wins until I actually post the story. But I have to say it's like how close that poll is. Kind of sort of gives me a little bit of a reassurance that I can kind of do different, either do different genres within the body change themes, or cross them over like I did with transforming Tyler, where I combined the muscle growth with the shrinking, and it makes me like and it sort of Like at least lets me know that I'm not like turning people away when I do something like a new sort of diet where a character's got a different body type than I've been doing. But the closeness of that poll has sort of given me an idea I never considered that story, Teddy Bear. Oh, we're done. I think this is just gonna have this panel is just gonna be them looking at him like he's got two heads or something. So, and while I was doing that, I probably could have been making the little black borders. But I've sort of, I have to say, like with the poll being as close as it is, I think I'm going to settle on a third option that I think everybody's going to love. And I'm not going to spoil it. But at the same time, it won't betray the poll. So I'm not going. I'm not going to go back on my promise to let you guys decide the direction of that story. But I think I'm going to go in a different direction based on the poll. It'll make sense, and you're really going to love it. If you like, I mean, I guess if you like the concept in the pictures that I put up for the poll already, then you're going to love what I'm going to do, I think. Um, okay. And I need him. Now what we're going to do is we're going to finally move inside the build. I put all this effort into creating this building and to creating the interior. So by God, now we're going inside. We're finally going inside this building. I finally get to work with it. Um, 0? No, this is 180. That's one of the minor things that comes up when I sit and design these different sets is I never standardize which way is forward and which way is back. So using the Y rotation is different with every set because sometimes the front of a structure is facing forward like it is here. You see the block, this side is labeled back, which means if we pull it to the front of the building is looking at the front, and other times it ends up going the other way. I think you see that especially in the apartment sets. Let me think how that. I'm trying to. Now I got going. I'm trying to think how that works. Um, I think it tends to be the apartment sets where the front door is actually at the back, and it's like in this wall here would be like would be technically the back of the apartment with the big windows looking outward. And so, oh my god, and I get all these unlabeled doors. Usually I label the doors so I know which is which, but for some reason I never did. And you know what? I'm just gonna do that here. Door. Front. Oops, I don't want a cat. It looks weird. Okay, so door front. Let's see. Since I've gotten to since I've been creating a lot of my own sets, sort of done more and more of the modeling myself. So it's these doors are becoming mine instead of um, acquiring them elsewhere. I went through all this trouble, and I don't. Now I'm thinking this isn't what I want to do. But so it's like if you like acquire. So it's like while I do modeling, I don't actually rig figures. So like if you were to acquire a door off the Daz site, for instance, it would likely be a rigged figure. Um, keys, like the truck is. Like see, the truck is a figure, not a static prop. So what I do is instead of making these doors as rigged figures, I'll make the frame and the door as separate props, and then just parent the door to the frame. Set the rotation point where it would naturally pivot. Delete keys, and then put a and then set the limits on the Y rotation so that the slider only so that I can only move the door within its reasonable range, so I don't have it coming inward when it shouldn't be. Hmm. Let's delete this. So it's so it's again like if you ever want to start creating like your own props and that sort of thing, and you sort of like to have movement, but you really don't. But you're really not you like me. You're not sophisticated enough to create fully rigged figures. You can always you can always cheat it by creating the pieces separate, like you do with the door and the frame, and then just parenting them together and having the individual pieces move like they're supposed to. It's I'll also sort of do that with a lot of the furniture. When I sit and create a lot of the furniture pieces, it's instead of making it as like a lot of the stuff you can find out there, like the drawers don't actually open, doors don't actually open, that sort of thing. Because if the expectation is that you're not really going to use the prop, it's just going to be there in the background. You don't need drawers and doors to open. But I'll sort of create the drawers and doors as separate pieces and then sort of parent them and set the rotation or movement point so that they can be opened. Because it's always when I have a prop like that I never expect it. Oh, seriously. Like if I've got a nightstand or a cabinet, if I sort of put it in a scene and never expect to have a character interact with it and open something, that's always the story where for whatever reason I want a character opening the door and closing it. Um, so I basically set all the furniture up with the drawers and the doors as separate pieces that I can move just in case I ever do want to have to or do want to have a character sort of go somewhere. Oops, that's not gonna work. His eyes are bugging me. As I'm sure you've probably already noticed, I do get a little scatterbrained with the work. Like you'll see me working on Elliot, and then all of a sudden I switch to him just to change the eyes. Because it's like always like I've got to work on what I've always got to work on what I'm seeing at the time. So it's like all of a sudden I notice the eyes aren't right. I've got to go in and fix them, so to speak, at that time, or it'll either just bug you or you'll forget about it. Let's see. Okay, that is weird. Okay, maybe not. Um, I'm trying to think. I feel like I should slip Rusty into this. But given the size of these characters, that is a very narrow door. So I don't know how much of him I'm going to be seeing in this. Is that even worth it? See, and then I get to a situation like this, going back to Scatterbrain, where I set the scene up, and now I'm having sort of second thoughts. Actually, no. Okay. Okay, since I've got it set up like this is going to be. Yeah, I'm sort of rethinking the. I'm sort of rethinking the strategy here a bit. And I think this will be better if I do this picture and then go backwards instead of. Instead of trying to take the picture for panel 5 and then coming back to this interior. See, the problem I'm having is from where I'm sitting, this isn't exactly a very good establishing. It doesn't. If this was panel 5, it doesn't exactly sell that this is the inside. I'm going to number this 125. So what I need basically is a panel between this one and this one. Okay. Not really going to change the idea I've got for this page, but all that's really changing is the images I'm hoping to use. And oddly enough, in the category of switching subjects without warning, because I think I do that a lot too. But I know lately I've been talking. So I've been talking about that. Lately I've been talking about this idea that I'm going to do a short story called Teddy Bear after this and before I give you the final part in this series. But also lately, this other story idea that I keep mentioning called Burn Pit, I think is kind of coming into my, is kind of, I think, moving into the realm of stories that I really want to do. It's an idea that's been in the back of my head for probably almost 2 years now. What just happened? Oh, I'm on the wrong layer. That's what. I think I mentioned it before that I kind of conceived this story at the same time as Little Bro, but it's just for some reason it's for kind of a number of reasons. It's never really. Um, it's never really a story that's grabbed me enough for me to like have to do it. And two, I think there's some aspects to the story where I think in the initial thoughts would just be sort of um, I think elements of the story that would be probably in the tell, told but not shown category, and I guess maybe that kind of is sort of not really sold. It's sort of like parts of the story that should be shown, but but I was not really haven't really been in a position to show it until recently. Um, let me see. And I think, well, I think the general arc of the story has never really. No, I don't want to. Has never really changed. Oh no, this is 24, isn't it? I forgot. I think there's been a. I think in my mind, sort of the focus of it has sort of changed to a point that's told me like that's what the story is about. So it was always intended to be um, is a bad idea. It was always intended to be a muscle growth story. I think because at the time I came up with Little Bro, um, it was sort of the idea to justify doing a story that wasn't a shrink tale was that in sort of expanding beyond that one um, shtick, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. I don't know what you want to call it. That one focus, was that it opened up possibility for. Did I just? I did, didn't I? I just copied that twice. The idea was that it like in doing a story that was different, that was outside sort of the macro micro of Shrimp of the House. It opened the door for more stories, and my mind just kind of like almost instantly popped into these ideas. So I kind of um, immediately had the idea for Burn Pit, and then I think my Twin No More kind of rolled off quickly. But unlike um, my Twin No More, think my mind would just never. My mind just couldn't focus, couldn't see Burn Pit as a story I wanted to do. But anyways, here I am like rambling on, and I forgot, and I kind of got away from the point I was going to make. But it was the idea, it was always this muscle growth story about a career serviceman, a career military man, not somebody who goes, not like a 20 something who's done his 3 years or whatever and is now coming out. It's the idea is this would be somebody who put in 20 years, um, retires and sort of takes up weightlifting to deal with the humdrum civilian life he's now back thrust into. And it's because he was career. And I know military focuses on families, not that military families are always the healthiest families, but I know the military is a lot more focused on families, but still, like the idea would be that during his service, he kind of put career. What just happened? He kind of focused on his career and not so much on the family. And I'm messing this up. Um, so it's at the same time he comes into retirement, so to speak, and okay, this is the one. The idea would be that his wife is ready to leave him. His adult son takes off for college and doesn't want anything to do with him, and that kind of adds to the boredom of civilian life. And he takes up the weightlifting, starts seeing unreal growth from it, and sort of over the course of his doctor visits trying to figure out what's wrong. The idea would be that um, the doctor finds out that uh, that it's what's going on with him is similar to something that's going on with a number of with a number of former servicemen that he served with at one particular point in his career. The suggestion is that um, the thought is that they had overseen that they were sort of burning layered image size. Here I am not thinking, but they were overseeing the burning of chemical stockpiles, whatever you want, whatever it is. They were overseeing these burn pits, and the speculation is that the combination of whatever particular chemicals they might have been burning on a specific night altered their bone structure. And the idea is while he's seen this unnatural growth, everybody else has been suffering from sort of progressive, crippling pain. I swear, any minute now, I'm gonna be focused on what I'm doing instead of what I'm trying to say here. But the idea is he's had a completely different reaction from the rest of the people he's served with, and he thinks it's the weightlifting, that he took up the weightlifting while his former teammates have sort of been living a more sedentary lifestyle, so to speak. So it's like his mission is that he collects these people together and eases them into weightlifting to try and reverse the debilitating pain. And like over the course of the story, they overcome, and like they start seeing it's like one of these, like he brings his buddies in on. It's like sort of he's able to share what he's got with his friend, with some old friends, that sort of thing. It's like you bring your buddies along on the journey with you. That was sort of the general um, that was sort of the general path of the story way back. Um, what am I doing? Okay, invert. See, I don't even. Okay, it's like none. Okay, this is. See, even when I'm not talking, I'm I'm too busy thinking about like what I'm gonna say, how I'm gonna say it. There's too much pressure. Oh my god. And I can't even. But oh my god, I did it! Yay! Oh, and I forgot to. Oh, hold on. Oh yeah, no, too late. I forgot to paste the layer, so we're gonna have to do another one. Oh, layer, new layer. Oh, da, 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 da. And believe it or not, as much as a disaster as this looks, this is actually the most productive I've been all week. Yay, there we go. So I can't complain about the what am I doing? About my split focus here because it's actually helping. But um, there we go. But I think I mean so it was. So I think one of the pieces that came together a little more recently, it's sort of put it back in my head, is the idea that instead of his marriage ending, I'm thinking um, seriously, let's do this again. So I'm thinking the whole transformation could end up saving his marriage. Like his wife is sort of out the door, and suddenly, and I think that his transformation sort of sparks a new life um, to their marriage and ends up saving it. Instead of it just being she walks out and that's the last he and that's the last he hears about it. The whole thing about helping his buddies is just moving on and putting it behind him. I think it ends up like being a stronger plot point that all of that helps put it, on top of helping his buddies overcome their handicap, so to speak. He he ends up managing to save his own marriage in the process too. Yay! Oh my god. Okay. And with 18 pages to go, now we can have them going forward. Let's save as going forward in this story. Uh, 6 and enter. And then we go image. What did I say? 18? Maybe they can spend 16 pages sneaking around inside the warehouse and finding out what's going on. Let's see. Okay, so here he is. He opens the back of the truck looking for his friends, thinking they're inside. It's empty. They're not in here. He said this was the same truck. Probably took them inside this warehouse already. And then they look at it like they didn't think of that. This is a bad idea. Not if we find BJ and the others. And that was page 6. As a little bonus to this video, like going back in the category of like things I've been doing when I should be working on this story. Like I said, I've been playing with the apartment, and these were just something I was messing around with. I was kind of experimenting. I think I kind of very recently picked up, I guess, the product in the data stories, Millennium Dog. But this is the puppy, and like I was just playing with the characters, was experimenting with this idea of like a possible idea for using him with a story. So I took Ted in the apartment in Cynthia's apartment and placed the dog puppy in and made him smaller. I kind of like. I think too. It's like picking up the dog model has kind of now made me think of a possible story idea to use that in. And I know the animals are always used in sort of horror type situations, like oh no, the cat's gonna eat me, or like the dog's chasing me. But I think because I like fun, I'm sort of more thinking of these like occasional fluff piece news stories you see of like how the dog befriends the duckling and or, or like the dog on the farm becomes best friends with a Canadian goose, that sort of thing. So I'm actually thinking if I use that dog in a story, it's going to be more of the friendly variety, the boy and his dog kind of story. But yeah, it hasn't been quite a dead week. I hope it's been a better week for you than it's been over here, even though I can't complain too much. But anyway, I am complaining, so I'm going to sign off here. That was page 6. I really hope you enjoyed that. And thank you very much.